They laughed the moment they saw the tattoo. It curved along the inside of her left forearm, stark black numbers separated by commas and decimals, unmistakable to anyone who'd ever stared at a map. Coordinates, precise ones, the kind you'd punch into a GPS, not ink into your skin. The room was a converted briefing hall at a joint training base on the California coast, filled with SEAL candidates, instructors, and visiting specialists. She stood quietly near the back, hands folded, dark hair pulled tight, eyes forward. Someone snorted. Another whispered loudly enough for others to hear. "What is that, a treasure map?" The laughter spread, casual and cruel, the way it often did when people thought they were among their own. She didn't react. She never did. The tattoo wasn't decoration. It wasn't a story she told strangers. It was a promise and a grave. The instructor at the front droned on about navigation failures in high-risk environments, but the whispers kept drifting back to her. One candidate leaned over and said, "Bet she Googled some random spot and thought it looked cool." Another added, "Probably coordinates to her ex's house." More laughter. She kept her gaze fixed on the wall, jaw set, breathing slow. She had learned long ago that explaining only cheapened certain truths. Some things had to be recognized, not defended. The door at the side of the room opened without ceremony, no announcement, no fanfare, just the subtle shift in attention that happens when someone important enters. Chief Aaron Hale stepped inside, his presence immediately changing the air. He was a legend even among SEALs. 30 years in, multiple theaters, the kind of man whose name was spoken with a mix of reverence and caution. Conversations died mid-sentence, spines straightened. Hale's eyes scanned the room, sharp and habit-trained, cataloging faces, posture, details. Then his gaze stopped. It locked onto her forearm. At first, no one noticed the change in him. It was small, a pause too long, a tightening around the eyes. He stepped closer under the pretense of checking the seating, his boots echoing softly on the concrete floor. As he passed her row, his eyes dropped again to the tattoo. The numbers were burned into his memory before his mind caught up. Latitude, longitude, exact. His breath caught, just once, but enough. His face drained of color. That couldn't be right. He stopped walking. The instructor faltered mid-sentence. Everyone followed Hale's gaze as he turned slowly toward the woman with the coordinates. The room was silent now, heavy with confusion. Hale stared at her arm as if it were a ghost that had reached out of the past and grabbed him by the throat. He knew those numbers. He had memorized them once, under a red moon with blood soaking into sand and radio static screaming in his ears. "Where did you get those coordinates?" he asked quietly. She looked up for the first time. Her eyes met his, steady, unreadable. "They were given to me," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "By who?" Hale pressed, though part of him already feared the answer. "My brother, Lieutenant Mark Reyes, SEAL Team 5. The name hit the room like a concussion. A few instructors shifted uncomfortably. Hale felt his chest tighten. Mark Reyes, KIA, officially lost during a classified extraction gone wrong in the Horn of Africa 12 years earlier. No body recovered, no marker, just coordinates listed in an after-action report that never went public. Hale swallowed. "Those coordinates," he said slowly, "are not public record. They weren't meant to be. They're where he died, or where he told me he would if everything went wrong." The mocking smiles had vanished. The candidates who'd laughed stared at the floor or at her arm, suddenly unable to look away. Hale stepped closer, his voice rougher now. "Why tattoo them?" She inhaled, a measured breath. "Because the Navy buried his name in paperwork. Because there's no headstone. Because when people forget, places disappear." She paused. "I won't let that place disappear." Hale closed his eyes briefly. He remembered that night now with brutal clarity. The ambush, the failed exfil, Reyes holding the perimeter alone while the rest of the team escaped. The last transmission crackling through the radio, coordinates given calmly, almost gently. "Tell my sister," Reyes had said. "She'll understand." Hale opened his eyes and did something no one in that room had ever seen him do. He snapped to attention and saluted her. The room froze. No one breathed. She didn't return the salute. She didn't need to. She simply nodded once, acknowledging something unspoken between them. Hale turned to the room, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "You see a tattoo. I see a man who held a line alone so you could sit here and joke." His eyes swept over the candidates. "You laughed because you didn't recognize sacrifice when it stood in front of you." No one spoke. The rest of the day passed differently. No more whispers, no more jokes. When she walked through the corridors, people moved aside, not out of fear, but respect. That evening, Hale found her standing alone by the shoreline, watching the sun sink into the Pacific. The wind tugged at her sleeves, briefly revealing the coordinates again. "He talked about you," Hale said, stopping beside her. "Said you always knew where you stood." She smiled faintly. He always needed someone to remind him. They stood in silence, the waves filling the space between words. The coordinates glinted in the fading light, no longer a curiosity, no longer a joke. They were a marker of loss, of courage, of a truth that didn't need explaining. And for everyone who had mocked them, they would forever be a reminder that some stories are written in ink because they were first written in blood. For more thrilling, emotional, and unforgettable stories, don't forget to subscribe, hit like, and share with friends who love powerful twists.